Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, April 11th, and it's 7:30 a.m. here. I am Winter Solace, Cosmic Weapon of Thule, and this is a longer video explaining my exit from the Black Vault, which, as you can see by this screenshot of an email I received this morning, I've been banned indefinitely rather than have them respectfully delete my account there. And this is going to be a longer video that covers a lot of why I am no longer going to be contributing there. And I will state that I've had about 4 hours of sleep, and I woke up at 4 a.m., been in the bathroom with diarrhea and stuff, and that is literally my body vacating all of the online vitriol and crap that I have been subjected to there for the past 5 years. And I know some of the people there are sad that I'm no longer going to be contributing there, and that's part of why I'm posting this longer video, to provide closure to those people, as those people are my friends, and I wanted to thank, and I do want to thank the staff there for the memories and my friends. And if anybody is following me and wants to come follow me on social media, they're more than welcome to. And people are more than welcome to repost my content there, shop updates, whatever they feel is necessary. And I'll be not contributing to the forum, and that'll, I think, end a lot of the soap opera there, and it'll be a little better for everyone in the long run. Now, I'm not going to name a lot of how the forum operates there. I'm not going to do that. There's no reason to do that. And what happened to me there could happen at any other forum, regardless of the subject of matter of the Black Vault, even if some of the circumstances leading up to this have not. But in order to tell that story, I'm going to have to take everybody back in time about 5 or 6 years ago, when NWN, when their Nuclear War Now's forum was closed. Everybody remembers, or people remember that, and then there was a void because there was all these people online that had nowhere to go, and at the time there was no way to promote a lot of this music, so new forums had to come into being, and there were 3 of them. There was the Warfare Noise Forum, which closed because no one used it, and the audience that they cater to really isn't the type of people that would collaborate with and contact with and have that to this day. And then there is the Revelation of Doom Forum that I am IP banned from after I got into an argument with Asrar on there drunk, and then proceeded to have an anxiety attack over it, and get into it with the forum's administration, and then obviously the Black Vault. And this was the forum wars that was really, really lame. It was really gay. Like, I remember there was a DDoS attack or something, and people on one of these forums were blaming me for this, wanted the FBI to come here. Remember that? Remember all that? Even though that's completely no basis in reality, that's what actually happened. And I had people affiliated with one of the forums calling me on my phone while I was at work. And I'm like, I don't do business over the phone. You're calling me at my job. And it's just a lot of internet drama that never gets diffused. Okay, the Black Vault, when it was originally started, I was in an arrangement with the owners of the forum to allow for it to be hosted in the United States. And everything was fine at first. You know, it was the original agreement I had, and said, that's fine, I will help you, but in return I want to be left alone. And there was, I guess, some differences as to what left alone actually meant. And that's going to start getting into why I left the forum. Before I can, address, actually, I'll address some of this now, and then we'll just go in chronological order. There were, as people have noticed, and I've had a lot of people come and talk to me about this, customers, bands, everything, people who they said, hey, that guy gets made fun of a lot. They didn't use that word. We had, and a lot of these were business disputes. Like, my favorite still to this day is one of somebody I sold cassettes to on Discogs received a faulty dub. I returned his money. This cost less than $5, and said something to the effect of, people tell me this, I'm just going to return your money, we can't help you, I hear these complaints and I think people are hearing things. This guy took extreme offense to that, because I guess he was a recording engineer or something and worked in a recording studio, and then proceeded to just consistently come in there every day, downvote everything he did, try to sabotage that, cause a bunch of drama. And I think whoever the administrators were at the time, simply either that individual was banned or asked to leave. But that's how somebody overreacted into a campaign there. And there were a couple other mentally imbalanced people I got in with through the years, one of which is in a band that's still active to this day, that I've had people here that have worked with him and say he's just mentally imbalanced, and I'm assuming he's better now, as we're somewhat civil, but it was a lot of arguing because he tried to poach my label's talent, and then I at the time overreacted a little bit to that, and I'll get to some of that in a bit. And then there was the guy who was a frequent customer and somebody who I had a lot of respect for and conducted himself very professionally for like 15, 20 years or something, and then was outed. And then I eventually figured out he was one of the people behind one of the accounts that would follow me around. And I just went to him in private and said, hey, I would request that you stop this behavior. I almost reacted this way, which I almost doxed you. I would request that you stop this behavior. And if you do not, I'll make this public. And then that individual proceeded to distort that wildly out of context, assume that I was trying to do all kind, and then just use that as an excuse to continue to overreact. Okay. There's nothing illegal. Making something public and doxing are two very different things, and me saying I almost doxed you in a fit of psychosis is not illegal. All right? So that's some of what I had to deal with there. And it goes on, and there's stories and all kinds of stuff. And, of people I've never met, or customers that buy things maybe once every 3 years or something, or people in countries I've never met, say, oh, well, I saw this, and this guy's this, and this guy's an ass, and it's like, there is a culture of that, and that's why a lot of these forums unfortunately decline, is that people like that take over and it turns into fighting. Now, to get to why I am no longer there. People may remember this. Okay, this is, well, I've edited out the name of this. This is a screenshot from a proper Facebook group that got circulated all over the internet over somebody complaining that they didn't receive an order from Klaxon Records. And Klaxon, when rather confronted with these accusations, would just ghost everybody. I made an offhand comment on the Black Vault that, well, you have time to make threads about Judas Iscariot, and you can't respond to the emails I've sent you. And then I received this. I've edited out the email address, but this is a grown man in his 50s that claimed to be doing this longer than I'm alive actually took the time to write me something like this. Okay? That's what somebody did. This is somebody who I considered a mentor and a friend, and somebody who I helped provide web hosting to, helped him locate pressing plants to press some of their stuff both in the U.S. and abroad. Having no clue what he is doing with them there, no clue what he is doing with who sent him there, none of those things. And considering that one of those institutions, their sales rep stopped responding to me with no explanation whatsoever, there may be more to that. There may be more to that. However, we just simply moved our manufacturing somewhere else. Okay. I don't want to look at this. I'm going to post this, move to this other one. This is, and I know a lot of the people are sad there. And I don't know if this, what the context of this was. Somebody sent me this morning. Seeing as how Idi Amin is retired now, I can probably stop with all the Uganda stuff and get different flags, or just film this here at my desk. Anyway, so fast forward to present day. We've already established, Black Vault really could use this book. Really could, because, and then I'm going to explain why I am no longer there and what happened to all that. All right, so background history. Anyway, 6 years ago when the forum began, and when I was approached to help out, I had a problem with alcohol. I wasn't a drunk where I would consume a case of beer a day or some exorbitant amount of number. However, my family has a history of anxiety and other things, and if you consume alcohol, it aggravates it. So it wasn't the amount of consuming alcohol that was the problem. It was me consuming alcohol and other things I did, taking iodine supplements, other things that I bought online for no reason. That's what contributed, that caffeine and being around other people and other energy when it gets riled up. That's what contributed to a lot of the behavior that I necessarily became famous for. Some of the more exorbitant and extravagant releases, the NS techno stuff, where I thought raw black metal that sounded like garbage was the literal white reincarnation of Sun Ra, the free jazz musician. None of that is in any way coherent or makes any sense, and that's just people being mentally imbalanced, okay? That was the time that I was approached to start this venture that I did with these people. And I'm not going to discuss anything other than that, because I did, after speaking to one of the people involved, and who I do have respect for, and I want to continue to preserve that business relationship and salvage all of that, I'm just going to decline to explain a lot of that any further. However, Klaxon, I already showed you the screenshots. I don't need to do that. You've seen the screenshots. I was excited. All right? Just a kid mentally. I was excited, even though I was, I think 29 or 30. How old am I? I'll be 35 this year, so I was probably like 29, 28. And I sent, he obtained correspondence. He retained every bit of correspondence that we had, I guess, for 6 years. And then proceeded to use some of that correspondence and deals I did with other people outside the United States in an attempt to influence the board of the forum and sanitize his reputation there, rather than just go out there and resolve that. Now, I don't conduct business that way. I never have. I've always been genuine and transparent, and people in society hate that. Anyway, I don't retain every single bit of correspondence I've ever exchanged with everybody and then just blackmail them. I don't do that. I don't operate that way. People say, hey, I have a problem with this, I resolve it. Or I enter into a dialogue with them. I communicate with them. All of those people that I've talked about through the years that get in disputes with me or something, all these enemies I have, all of these things could be resolved by people being rational adults and coming and resolving their differences. In the entire time that I've done this and been around, nobody has came to me and said, hey, we've had all these disputes. I want to just amicably resolve this and come to a resolution with this where we're both happy. Okay, because I'm sick of being disrespected online. So anyway, but that's a little bit of a different tangent. I'm going to get to that in a bit. Anyway, so the situation with Claxon is now at this point resolved. This is about a month or two ago. I can't remember. Time escapes me. Anyway, one of the individuals that I was involved with this business arrangement with held me accountable or held me liable or didn't feel comfortable being involved in business with me because of 6-year-old emails and correspondence being leaked and everything like that. This individual didn't feel comfortable doing that. Never mind that I've been completely sober since 2022. I have completely changed as a person. I do not consume caffeine. And if I get into an environment where everybody is extremely riled up or there's a lot of energy, and I'm conscious of that fact, I simply recuse myself of the situation. Take pauses. I understand that this is not an environment I need to be in. Okay? You are not the same person that I was 6 years ago. And whether or not these individuals still chose to hold me accountable to that old standard or that old version of me, I have zero control over that, and I'm not attempting to say that's right or wrong. I don't live these people's lives. I don't know these people's lives. I don't know these people's situations. I haven't lived them. Here is what I have a problem with, and this is why I am no longer going to contribute to the forum. It was Wednesday night. I'm getting ready for bed, and I see someone on that forum. This is a private seller. He is, based in the United States, and he is affiliated or loosely or a part of a music scene or a sub-scene within black metal that I don't necessarily connect with, I don't get along with, I don't like the personality types of the people involved in this. And I found what this individual was doing to be disrespectful. In the Business Bite segment, which I'm going to film probably tomorrow or later this weekend when I film the rest of the podcast, this individual was reselling several of my label's releases well below production cost and basically giving away releases that to people and collectors in the countries where they came from would be worth a fortune to, but they could never import them. And in the case of one of those, it was the Gateway of the Sun demo, which the individual who composed that tragically died. And I just simply said to this individual, I will be directly honest with you. This behavior I find to be disrespectful to my label. I find disrespectful to my business. I am requesting that you stop. And I listed a bunch of reasons and things he could do. And I made my position on the matter quite clear. That argument in itself is also not why I left the forum, because I got into arguments with people like that all the time. It would eventually cool off, and everybody goes their separate ways. The only thing special that individual is he gets to be the distinction of the last person to ever argue with me on an internet forum. He has that title, and against all of his other accolades, and he can go and do all of that. The post I originally made to this individual on that forum's trade thread, I woke up the next morning and I just found it was simply removed with no explanation by one of the users, the moderators there. And that in itself is not and then one of the other members of the forum preserved it, and then there was the giant blow up that pissed everyone off. That proves that everybody on that forum again really could use a copy of this. You really could. A lot of stuff they could unpack with this, or any other book that's like this. Anyway, where was I? And this is something, again, because I am a life coach. I do try to help people who have had issues of any kind with mental health, where they go and try to recover on their own. Well, it will illustrate this basic concept that I'm about to illustrate. Okay? When I originally helped them build that forum, it was, in my opinion, as I said earlier, a place for free speech, or legal free speech, obviously, but where you wouldn't be subjected to shadow bannings or anything, or censorship of that nature from a technical force, for a political reason, for everything else. Post was removed, no explanation. I still, to this day, have never been told why. Even though it's only been like 2 days. I've never been told why. I mean, I'm sure they probably have told everyone why now. But I don't know why. I legitimately do not know. And a year ago, this was an issue, and I forgot to pursue it with them. Because if you, as I said, because I was in an arrangement with these people and a business deal where I perform this voluntary and elective service for you. And so what I did was I went to the people I was responsible with, and I simply set a boundary. Boundaries are a term. It's common in self-help. And for people who are struggling with any of these things and you don't know what this are, the minute you actually go and understand this, which is a very basic and easy concept to understand, or you see other mentally ill people or people who you don't necessarily think have all their issues in order, there's something wrong with them or something, that person has no boundaries. Okay? You see all these people who just kind of get walked all over and be doormats. These just let people treat them like garbage. Those people have no boundaries. I simply set a boundary. I simply said, I cannot perform this function for you that I do to help you until this is resolved. Rather than simply take the 5 minutes, resolve this issue, explain to me why the post was removed, we have a dialogue about it, and then I was going to say, hey, you need to simply go to the moderators and say, as a condition for moderating the forum, when you remove someone's content, in order to preserve free speech and transparency, you need to tell them that it was removed and why. Because there's a lot of people there that'll go and post stuff on these forums that don't necessarily agree with the tone of the forum, and rather than have constructive conversation, it just turns into a giant argument. Because if you don't go with the flow of everything there, that's usually what happens. Well, the individuals that I was dealing with, which were the forum's moderators, rather than do that, simply said, I think we should part ways. And I just said, that's fine. They declined to, that was their response to the boundary. And that's that. And I just said, that's fine. We're going to part ways, but I'm going to be leaving. I'm going to be making my side of the story public on our own platforms and channels, because a forum that is supposedly for free speech is not, even when somebody who was heavily involved with the forum, like I was, in any capacity, does not have that right. So, that's the gist of it is the reason I'm no longer there is because I simply chose to say, hey, this environment is toxic to my mental health, and I'm simply taking responsibility for it, and that's that. And if anybody is, again, sad, then that's that. But it's a perfectly normal thing to set a boundary. And while we're on the subject of boundaries, I'm going to actually explain. There's two kinds of boundaries, okay? There's, if you do this, I'm going to do this to you kind of boundary. The only time that has any hope of ever succeeding or working is if the individual is engaging in some type of extremely destructive or illegal behavior. Which is, otherwise, if it's just differences of opinion or somebody disrespecting you or something, usually that is, you have to use the other type of boundaries as, well, if you do this, I'm going to do this, which is I'm just going to, in this case, say I'm no longer going to help, and I am going to cease performing or stopping this voluntary service for you. I wish them all the best of luck. I want to thank the staff and all the friends and people I made there for all the memories. And as I said before, if anybody who follows me on social media wants to simply just take all of our content and repost it there, I would wholeheartedly encourage people to do that, because that way we still get the the promotional benefit, and the people can still go and have access to that without having to deal with a lot of the stuff that goes with me as a person just not being compatible. And I'm just simply saying that, okay, we're going to exit the situation. And I have no interest in returning to that environment. As they declined to renegotiate the arrangement that I had because of all of the stuff I said earlier, where they no longer felt I was comfortable, they could work with me comfortably because of what other people chose to do and take advantage of somebody who was just an excited kid 6 years ago. But I don't have any control over that. But even if, my role would have to be, and I was wanting that anyway, because I was going to, if setting this boundary worked, there would be other boundaries that would eventually have been set as, in order to simply change the forum's culture a little bit so I could go there and not feel like I was being bullied back in middle school. Okay? Because I actually developed imposter syndrome over some of this stuff there that I dealt with. It actually caused me serious psychological harm. I actually remember calling my mother and asking her if I was tested for autism when I was in kindergarten and grade school. I actually did that because of what I was subjected to on there. I actually felt the need to do that. I legitimately believed that because of all of the cyberbullying and everything else that I was subjected to there. And when I simply said, I simply said, you need to do this, and I want this to stop, the people responsible for that, in that aspect, the moderators and the staff, well, they may feel otherwise, and that's fine. They did not resolve those conflicts to the best of their ability. Okay? And so that's that. And for people who interacted with me on there and they felt wronged or something by something I either said or did, I want you to know that I am legitimately sorry for my behavior and how I conducted myself. And I have been open to a dialogue, and I still am, but I will never return to that forum. I will not. If somebody builds a new forum, don't show it to me. And if people observe all of that hate or the stuff online of people bitching about me or whining or whatever, I don't want to see stuff like that. It's extremely negative. If there's a customer somewhere or something that it's something related to our mail order or something, yeah. All you need to do is tell them they need to contact me to resolve that. I am tired of being an internet gangster. I am tired of consistently having to argue with anybody. I am legitimately tired of being disrespected. I'm legitimately tired of not being worth people's time. I'm legitimately tired of not being understood. I'm legitimately tired of being the victim of these bullshit campaigns made by people who have nothing better to do with their time than just troll people and start shit. Who have no interest at all in having a constructive dialogue with people like me who don't differ or fit into their worldview. And that's fine. I can understand that. I am sometimes too much for people. But with all that being said, I'm simply recusing myself from the situation in the toxic environment. And I hope that this is concluding and is the fitting series, I guess, finale to my involvement on the Black Vault. Many of these forums, usually when something like this happens and a lot of the people involved with that leave, that they don't last much longer. And I'll let and if they continue on, and I do wish them all the success in the world, but I will no longer be a part of it. And that's that. And hopefully this has told my side of the story. I've never gone in there with the intention of disrupting anything for marketing. I've just gone there and said, hey, we release a lot of great music and a lot of stuff, and we have a lot of really interesting stuff. Here's how you can obtain it and try to promote it. That's all I've ever done, and try to talk about my president. But yeah, so that's the end of this. Sometimes you just gotta let them. So hopefully the people that are ecstatic that I'm never going to be back there again aren't celebrating too hard. But that's that, and I will be shooting the rest of the podcast in a couple of days, and we'll have the full episode up in a few weeks. But again, thank you.